But we have food and refreshments. Restrooms are right around the corner also. And I just want to thank you for taking your valuable time. And hope you had a chance to look on the web page. We put a lot of documents up there. If you weren't at the last meeting, you're here tonight. The video will be posted here in the very near future. And then we're also videotaping tonight. So if you have a friend that could be here or just a community member that wants to watch it, just tell them to go to the website. And we're actually streaming this live. So I guess if you pull out your phone, you can watch it on YouTube while we're doing it. But again, also, we really thank you for coming this evening. This is such a valuable component of the future of our school district and where we're going. So I want to personally thank you. Also, I'd like to introduce our school board president, Krista. And she couldn't be here last time because of an event. And so Krista Smiley would like to say a few words.
That hopefully is going to allow us to make some performance targets and then an action plan with a timeline. So what I wanted to do was just kind of talk about how things are changing for students today, and then also kind of tell you a little bit about a PowerPoint that Dr. Kaiser gave to us yesterday evening. In the PowerPoint, it talked a little bit about kids today and some growing trends and how the changes that they're faced with, how we need to be able to make sure that children can adapt to change and just kind of do that readily. Because if you think about technology and the way that's changing, and you think about students today, I know I saw an article in the paper probably about a year ago that students will probably change their profession, not just their career, but their profession maybe about 6 times in their lifetime. And when I think about that, I think, wow, that is really kind of daunting. I've been in the same profession for 25 years, been at the same facility for 25 years. So to be able to reinvent yourself 6 times over your lifetime, that seems like a pretty daunting task, and that's a lot of change. The other piece of the article talked a little bit too about being able to develop maybe a softer skill set in our students. So maybe looking at that emotional intelligence piece and some of those transferable skills, because actually some of them may be in school today, but may even be preparing for a career or a job or profession that doesn't even exist yet. So if you think about that in terms of our strategic plan this evening, think about some of those things that we want to put into the strategic plan that's very specific targets or interventions. But then also look at maybe that broader sense of what we really want to accomplish with that softer skill set, critical thinking, problem solving, and being able to analyze problems. So that's a little bit about what we're going to do this evening. We are extremely appreciative of everyone's time, so we're going to be respectful of time. We're going to go ahead and start this evening and hopefully get you out right at 8:30. So thank you so much for your participation.
All right, my name is Tom Keeley, in charge of business and personnel. So what I do as far as our agenda tonight, it really is just concrete sequential. I really like to set our standard, kind of set to the time frame. And tonight we're just going to...
There's your agenda.
We're going to develop an updated strategic plan to guide the curriculum decision-making, facilities, safety of students, and allocation of resources. It's going to be for the next 5 years. I really think that the steps that we've done in the last 8 to 10 years, since Dr. Kaiser and I have really looked at the finances very carefully, how to navigate the tax rate, how to navigate doing referendums, how to do all these things, has gotten us to a place of a solid cash balance. However, when you look at the 5 things and you think about curriculum and facilities, safety, our resources, the budget as a whole, we have to be strategic in how we spend the money. So really what we're asking tonight is, as we identify very specific goals, I'm asking for instructions Dr. Kaiser and I are asking for instructions on how to spend the money. And I really appreciate, and thank you very much as far as with the goals, I'm involved in the personnel piece and how to find great people and how to retain great people. And we struggle with that, and that's something that I'm really excited to explore. So that's part of the allocation of resources, and they're the financial resources. So I'm really excited about looking at that. What does it take to pay a teacher? How much to make them feel like, you know, this is a great place and I really am worth what I'm doing every day, because teaching, being an administrator, and working in any of the schools is really a daunting task every day. But we all value it and work very hard at it. So that is our goal, and that is the objective for tonight. So they're going to define the objectives and move forward with it as it is.
All right. Hello, I'm Rita Bass, for those of you who weren't here last week. I love the microphone. I would like to talk about the goal setting process. Last week, we had you guys do the activity where what we believe in, what we know, and what we want. And we took all of that data. Remember, we had 6 different sheets. We kind of had our focus areas already somewhat identified. And we took all of the data and all of the feedback that you guys gave us, and we put it into a couple charts. And you'll see a couple of them on your tables. The first process was we just lined them up here by focus area, and we put what you believe in, what you know, and what you want for each one. Okay, and you'll see that one's in the blue. So you'll see there's lots and lots of pages. Okay, so what we did then was we looked at all of them, and you can see my scratch everywhere. I highlighted by commonalities. So basically I just categorized the data to figure out what the main ideas were that you were wanting and needing. Okay, so that then turned into this right here, which was still all of your data. It's just categorized differently. Okay, all by common areas, common wants, common needs. And then what we did from here was we had a meeting, a team meeting, curriculum team meeting, and we went through each piece, each category, and we took the main ideas out of it to come up with our target goals. Okay? So if you look, each one of you, there on the table here, there should be a stack of papers that look like this. And it says 2018-2022 strategic planning, focus areas, and goals. So basically, everything we did the last meeting has turned into 9 goals. And these are what we're going to work on tonight. Our focus areas are in orange, and our objectives that we want to fulfill or achieve are in black underneath each focus area. And you will notice that the highest student achievement has the most goals under it, okay? Which is why we're here. We're here to help our students grow and learn, okay? So I'm going to pass it over to Steve Bear, who is almost Dr. Bear, very, very soon. Right?
Well, I like the microphone too. If you've ever had me in class, I love to talk and tell stories. But we're going to stay on task tonight because there's a big baseball game. And I'm a baseball fanatic also. So with that being said, let's take a look at what those commonalities were when we went and looked at all of our data. If you remember, again, these are our focus areas: efficient operations, highly functional facilities, safe and orderly caring environment, highly effective and motivated staff, that strong parent community involvement, and then highest student achievement. And as Rita said, you'll notice that when we get to highest student achievement, that's where we had 4 goals. And again, we looked very closely at the data and tried to put them into these goals that represent these major pillars. So, when you look at efficient operations, one of the things we're going to do tonight, if that is your area of passion, if you enjoy efficient operations and fiscal responsibility, we will look at the establishing processes and procedures for evaluation of all of our K-12 programs. When you look at our programs, it's important to make sure that what programs we have are effective, and if so, how do we know that? And are they worth the money that we put into them program-wise? So that's something that we'll look at, is how to form a plan to do that. Second, highly functional facilities. And this is the one that I'll be at as the, in my job, I am overall the facilities. I work hand in hand with Dale Reed, our Director of Facilities, in monitoring these. So I'll be at that group and having that conversation with the renovations. As you know, we have older school buildings. So along with that comes a lot of maintenance. So we're going to look at some of those things that are needed within that. How do we develop a plan so that we strategically address the issues that our buildings have? We already do this to some degree, but it's also good to hear other people's ideas on how we effectively address that, so we'll work on that in our group tonight. Safe, orderly, and caring environment. There'll be a group, if you're passionate about that, that will develop a community outreach program that provides those wraparound services. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely head to that table tonight to work on our affinity diagrams. Next one, a highly effective, motivated staff. Okay. As we have many teachers here, and it is a daunting task every day. When you have 30 children with completely different needs sitting in front of you, how do you effectively address them? And it is a stressful job. And so how do we retain those teachers that work their tails off? And how do we keep them as Hornets? This is my 21st year as a Hornet, 25th year. I know nothing other than Beech Grove. So, how do we get these young people started today? How do we keep them involved? Well, research says that, older teachers, more experienced teachers, often have more strategies, more techniques. So how do we keep these young people in our district? We have great teachers, but we also have surrounding districts that have higher pay. And how do we? So one of the jobs that Dr. Keeley's group will look at tonight is how do we retain those people in our district? It's important to keep them here because we put a lot of time into educating them, into professional development, and they do a great job in the classroom. So we want them to stay with us because they're great people. Next, strong parent, family, community involvement. We're going to look at how to standardize methods of communication. That was something we heard. How do we have that standard communication throughout the district? You might get a s'more from one school, then another type of newsletter for another one. How do we standardize that to make communication more effective throughout the district? If you have some people have a student in every building. No examples of that. We've got to do it to make it easier for parents to understand the communication coming from our buildings. And then probably the most important one, is, everything kind of ties back to getting student achievement. And so that's where there are 4 goals associated with that.
Can I interrupt just real quick?
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that everyone understands that these goals came from the data that you provided to us. Okay, so everything, we took out the common words and we just wrote them in a goal format. So everything that is up here has come from the data that was given by you guys.
Right, so we looked at the data and put them into a common theme. And so these are just common themes from all of the data. So we sat around our table one day and and did that one morning. So this is what came from your feedback at these meetings. There was talk about developing program and resource allocations for differentiated learners. How do we better educate EL students? How do we high ability students, at-risk students, students with poverty? Obviously, there are a lot of different teaching strategies to go with each of these age groups. How do we better prepare our teachers, prepare through professional development, through practicing these techniques in the classroom? Continued focus on SEL mental health support and opportunities for students in college and career readiness and data-driven decision-making. Okay? Developing a quality community preschool program. We saw many people talk about how do we prepare kids so that they're more successful when they come to kindergarten. I talked about having that preschool program, which the sooner you get kids, the sooner you can start educating them. As we said before, we have excellent teachers. So if they can get a hold of a kid at age 3, they're ready to begin kindergarten. Where now we have some kids come on first day, they don't even know their name. So when you think about testing a student who doesn't even know your name, you're starting at the wrong spot. So there's a lot of challenges that come with getting children at age 5. The idea is maybe we want to try and get them at age 3 to have a bigger impact. And then restructuring grade level configuration to meet academic, social, emotional needs of students. We saw some things of like preschools, trying to eliminate some of the moving from one building to another, the transitions. We have 5 buildings. We have the K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 building, 9, 12 building. A lot of transitions, so there's some comments about that. And obviously, trying to get our buildings so that sometimes like a 4, 5, 6 building is not the most appropriate. Sometimes a 6, 7, 8 building is more appropriate. It just kind of depends. So looking at what is the most appropriate configuration of grades in our district. And how can we use our buildings to implement that type of grade level. So things like that, is something that interests you tonight. You might want to go to that highest student achievement table. All right.
What we're going to ask you guys to do for the next part of it, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, Mrs. Walters, our high school principal, will lead you through this.
Good evening. The good news is we are now in the audience participation phase. So we have reviewed all of the goals, but you have those on one sheet of paper. So if everybody could take a look at the paper titled 2018 to 2022, Strategic Planning, Focus Areas, and Goals. If you've got that in front of you, as you'll notice, the focus areas are in orange. And those are those focus areas that future Dr. Bear just went over. But in black print there, we have our 9 goals. One of these goals, we're going to use a good instructional practice from our classroom, and we're going to model one of those goals just to give everybody an idea of what we're looking for tonight. But for 8 of those goals, we're going to ask you to self-select into a goal that you feel really passionately about. A goal that you feel like you want to contribute to that conversation. You might feel very passionately and have a lot to say about it. So take about 1 minute, if you would, on that sheet of paper. Take a look at all of those goals in black print. And go ahead and self-select. The first goal on establishing a process and procedure is going to be our model. So if you picked that goal, please pick a number 2, second choice. Give me a quick thumbs up, if you would, if you have selected a goal. Okay, we'll take a few more seconds. Okay, so audience participation will first require movement. We're going to go through the structure of the room here for a second and try and take a look at our numbers real quick. So if you self-selected the goal that says restructure of grade level configuration to meet the academic, social, and emotional needs of students, could you raise your hand? Perfect. We've got about 6. So when the time comes, you will move to this table here. If you selected the goal, continued focus on social emotional learning, mental health opportunities for students, college and career preparation, and K through 12 data decision making, could you raise your hand? Okay. Beth and Anthony and I will have some really robust conversation. We will be right over here. If you selected, renovations will be made to district-wide facilities to meet the needs of students, staff, and community. Could you raise your hands? Okay, you guys will be at this table here. If you selected, develop a quality community preschool program and prepare our students for the rigor of college and career readiness, could you raise your hand? Perfect, you guys will be here with Gina. Raise your hand if you want to develop a community outreach program that provides wraparound services for students and their families. Okay, you guys will be here. Raise your hand if you would, if you picked develop a program and resource allocations for differentiated learners, such as special ed, EL, high ability, and at-risk students. Okay, you guys will be here. If you'd like to develop a competitive compensation model to attract and retain highly qualified, effective educators, could you raise your hands? All right, you guys will be over here. And last but not least, we are pretty well split up. If you'd like to standardize methods of communication throughout the school district, could you raise your hand? Okay, so does anyone have a place not picked yet? All right, let's take about 30 seconds and move to those tables, please.
Let's wait. Then they can do the individual one first.
Group leaders, if people at your table start to arrive, please find the gray handout and make sure everyone has one. We are efficient. So the table leaders have made sure that everyone at the table has a handout, a grayscale handout. If you could turn to the side that has the focus goal, establish a process and procedure for program evaluation, it looks to be a table that's already filled out. As I said, a good instructional practice that we use in the classrooms and we think is really good for meetings as well is to provide a model for our expectations this evening. So you self-selected into a different goal, but we'll use this first goal as a model. So in order to fill out our end product today, which is an affinity map, we're going to try and reach consensus in our group on two things. Number one, we want to take a look at what are our next steps. So we have these really big overarching goals. We want to whittle down into some very easy to do directions, some next steps in order to accomplish these big goals. Then we want to take a look at what timeline we might attribute to those individual steps. So how long might this goal take us to accomplish? Next time we come back, we will take a look at how we can measure our progress on these goals, and we might take a look at prioritizing those. But today we just want to focus on these two things. What do we need to do to accomplish it, and how long might it take us to do that? So if I look at this model on the focus goal of establishing a process and procedure, I need to think about what we need to do first, because that's a really big thing to do. So the first thing I want to think about is, what do I need? who needs to be involved? And potentially for some of our goals, I might have to think, where might these next steps happen? So the first thing I think about in this goal is I have to develop a list of all of the programs that we have in the district. If I'm going to come up with an evaluation process, I need to know how many programs we have. So I might jot down there, make a list of all those programs that we offer, and then I'm going to take a look at who is associated with those programs, because I think it's important that we get that stakeholder input. How long might it take me to do that? Well, within a month, I think we could probably make a list of all of the things in the district. So my first point there is to make that list, and in my timeline, I'm going to jot down, that might take me a month. Then I might think on the next things that we have to do in order to accomplish this goal. So some of those things that came to mind for me is really to communicate that goal to the people that I've come up with that are involved with those programs. I might put together a committee of some of those stakeholders to take a look at which evaluation models are out there for program evaluation. Because I'm sure there are quite a few. So I need to determine with this stakeholder input which one we want to use. Those two things might take me a month as well. Next thing I might want to do is develop some subcommittees at each building to gather some evidence on those programs. Once we've determined that model, I'm going to need to have some evidence on what those programs look like. That might take me 6 months. That's going to be a pretty long process because we've got 5 buildings and a lot of programs in those buildings. I'm not done yet because we just have that list and we've got a model. I need to take some evidence now on some of the finances that are associated with those programs to make sure that we're getting as much as we can out of the money that we're spending. That might take me 3 months because I'm certainly going to have to get with Dr. Keeley to do that. Kind of take a look at the people that are on those subcommittees. Last but not least, I certainly want to use those stakeholders that I've identified, and we might finish up this goal. My last step might be analyzing all of those programs that we're doing, the finances associated with those programs, looking at the program model for evaluating those programs, and then making some decisions about what programs we're spending our money on. So hopefully you can see on this model that that one side is really the individual steps that will get us to this big goal that we want to get to. And the timeline that it might take us, try and think if you can on a realistic sort of basis, maybe in month time frames, and that might help us to get an idea of how long we think these goals might take us. Are there any questions on our purpose for this activity? Okay, so part of the affinity map process is we'll take about 5 minutes. And for 5 minutes, we'll ask, if you flip your grayscale handout over, you should have the goal that you selected on this side. And on that left side, take about 5 minutes to think, what are the individual steps that we need to accomplish in order to meet this goal? Begin to think about how long those individual steps might take. And in 5 minutes, we'll come back together in our small groups, and we'll create a group affinity map combining all of the ideas that you guys have. Any questions on the activity? All right, we've started a 5-minute clock. If you could brainstorm individually. We'll take about 2 more minutes for your individual brainstorm. Go ahead and finish up your individual brainstorm if you would. And group leaders, go ahead and begin your affinity math conversation. We will take pretty much as long as we need. We've got about 30 minutes allotted for this activity. And we'll finish out the evening with a gallery walk of all of our work. So go ahead and plan on about 30 minutes to develop some of the next steps and timeline for your goal. Oh, and help yourself to the snacks. There's coffee, cookies, fruit, cheese, crackers, and water.
Just to let you guys know, this is Dale Reed. Dale is our director of facilities here at Beech Grove, so he's in charge of all the buildings. And also the husband of Mrs. Reed, our South Grove principal. I'm Steve Bear. I'm the assistant superintendent in charge of operations and curriculum, transportation. So, and this is Steve Cox, our director of transportation. And does everybody had an opportunity to meet each other here? If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
I am Bruce Bye. I've lived in the community about 45 years. Helped start the agriculture education program and retired from EILO.
Jim Kaufman, citizen here in Beech Grove and own the X9 shoe store on Main Street.
Jill Daly. I have lived in Beech Grove for 4 years, and my daughter is in 6th grade at South Grove this year. She was in private school before, so we're new to Beech Grove schools.
Who's our teacher?
Mrs. Wood. Yeah.
My wife's a 6th grade teacher at South Grove.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mrs. Bear.
Gotcha. Okay.
Aaron Lamb, been here in Beech Grove, moved here about 10 years ago, and I have 3 children, various ages, now up to high school, senior, and younger, so been pretty active with all the activities.
My daughter's a transfer student, but we have family. So I have a daughter at South Grove.
I'm Dale Reed. I've been with Beech Grove 8 years. Been doing the facility side for the last 3 years. It's all a learning process as well as everything else. So it's a big opportunity. We take care of the maintenance, grounds, pool area, and custodians.
I'm Steve Cox. Been here 23 years, 11 as assistant principal here at the high school, 7 as the principal here. I retired about 2.5 years ago and came back to be director of transportation, so I've been doing that for
Appreciate everybody's feedback. First of all, thank you for coming on. It's great that we have our community members. As we said, one of the things that came out of all of the feedback that we had last week was our building facilities. As you know, many of our facilities were some of them built in the early 1900s, or 1930s, I would say, or central. Yeah, 1928. Middle school. So we've got some older buildings. Our newest one is Hornet Park, which is around 2001. That's our newest building, Hornet Park. When you look at the buildings, though, what you'll notice that Hornet Park is of newer construction and newer materials, which are not the best when you think of old solid block construction. So when you look at the walls there, they're basic drywall with kind of a covering on them, a stucco coating on them. So even our newer facilities, after 14, 15 years of little people dealing with them, they like to pick as they stand in line. They'll sit there and pick holes in the wall. So it's a huge challenge that we have on a daily basis to kind of keep our facilities up and going. So it's good to have some feedback involved in that. So what we're going to look at tonight is trying to get some feedback on how we go about identifying all of the areas of need in our district in terms of building needs. And in the end, when we come up with a list, I think it'll be important to kind of, when we think about who, I think the who's important also. Because when you look at a list, if just Dale and I go for a walk around the buildings, it's good to get other people's insights, people that are in the building, community members. What may look good to Dale and I may not look good to you as a community member. You may think, why is it like that? It's good to have different insight. I think it's also important is for community members to understand what we look at. A lot of times you'll walk in a place that says, this looks great, but if you know that 2 doors down we always have water leaks because of rain, or roof upset. I think it would be good to really think about strongly when we build a team of who looks at these building needs. Who we have on that team. That's good to kind of have more eyes and just really give everybody the true insight of what our building needs might be. Something to think about. But as you thought, let's take a look at what was talked about here. I'm in between blind and can see. I can see far away, but not close enough. I have dual grandpa glasses. Turn 50 next year, so I'll fit right into these. But does anybody have any feedback on what they feel needs to happen? What needs to happen in this process?
I've got a couple of thoughts about the current situation. A lot of it from a community perspective, as you say, is kind of hidden. For instance, I know we're cited for some air quality issues.
Just think of it between one classroom. How would you make that? What would you find? K3 together, just the ventilation. 4 or 5 special ed teachers creating plans for strategic mediation. This is what you call it. We've done a lot of discussion.
We're not getting treatments. Susan Shaw has applicants. You guys have experienced turnover, so the cohesiveness of the thing is what if we put these K pods together, 2 Ks, 2 pods, 2 twos, 2 threes, however, and then those grades can really be at where they're going. And if instead of second grade student that begin to do beginning third grade work, then there's that opportunity just to go across the floor. And there also becomes a collegiality between the teachers, because Ashley trusts what Lexi is doing, I trust what Stephanie's doing. I just thought, to me, then we have these areas or outlets where kids can read. Not teachers have resources that they can want to one better than anybody else. That was just teacher satisfaction too. I missed seeing even if you think nice, I think it gives teachers. Got it. That's the problem. The disconnect between so just be data instruction.
I think too, not just where they grow, even where they begin. As a third grade teacher, I don't see kindergartners come into Beech Grove. I have a kindergarten child. I know what she's capable of, but I don't see these kids come in not knowing their names, not knowing how to do that. And if I can meet Ashley as a kindergartner, and then I have her in third grade, I've known Ashley now for 30 years, and it's a lot more powerful.
And if you're in that small learning community like Lisa talked about, you got a whole group. And that's why I talk about, if you imagine Hornet Park, obviously we'd have to add on. But you have this one community here, you have another community here, and you have shared teacher space and shared remediation space. So we're not sending kids out in the hall like we do at someplace else. You could redesign the building with an educational philosophy in mind of again, that family, the cohort. You can have, right now, the teaching assistants could be working together. Title I could be working together. They're just, as we've kind of talked about this concept, it seems to make a lot of sense, and then you could even outsource the assistant principals that would be in different parts of the building. Their offices would be designed out here. They wouldn't be, you don't go to the office. Assistant principal goes to the kid, they pull them down to the, little refocus room within there. And it could really, if you start thinking outside the box, it really restructures philosophically how we meet the needs of kids. Every area, you'd have special socio-emotional sensor rooms like we've done at Central, but maybe differently. You could have different rooms where kids are doing kinetic learning and different types. You could really do it. Again, you have a second grader who's really reading at third grader doing math. Well, it's pretty simple. We're breaking up in math groups and vice versa. There's some advantage of looking at it that way. Your thoughts, ladies? What else?
I was working on a more smaller scale. Being so new to Beech Grove. Very articulate in your thoughts. I just had to evaluate student population appropriately according to each building size, if it's too big or too small, but according to what you said, we're kind of pushing elbows.
I did the same thing.
Thank you. Okay, so our first step needs to be what to develop
Do the
and
survey, identify need, community needs assessment. So however you want to write that. And then we'll come up with a timeline once you get it. Leave a little space in case we move things around a little bit.
he set it there to record us, I think. Assess community-driven needs.
Okay, then we said we need to create a list of the needs once we determine it.
Yeah, I should have made the art teacher do it.
You guys have good handwriting. Then we said we need to determine the participants. So it was that towards the end. That's probably at the, over here. We need to
create a list of
the resources already available. We mentioned that you need to look at models for other area community centers.
Yes. But even for community, you got to take it to them. I mean, I think you got to find a way to make it standardized, even if it's like an app, where you pull up the app and it's like, well, here's the middle school tab. Let me pull it up and everything I need to know about the middle school, what's going on, or central. And even if you have to at the start of every school year, I think most people know how to do apps, but if you got older parents that don't like social media, have them come on in. I'll get it loaded up on your phone for you, and I'll show you. I'll set it up.
Like the remind tab, whenever you post something or you post something, it's like, hey, I posted, here's the link, go look at it, on the remind tab. It seems like, in addition to like the text messages or the phone calls, all the options are awesome.
That was going to be the thing I suggested. I don't know if there's funding for that or resources, et cetera, or whatever, but there being a hub app for the district, because you were talking about, the district thing comes out, this school, and then one of you were saying like 3 different people, or 3 different methods of communication to get the same thing. But post it on the app, like, okay, today's a snow day, here's the schedule, did you read the Hornet Blast? That kind of thing, to where people can go and get that one-stop shop for all of that, the schedules, everything. I know that takes a lot of work and money and all of those things, but in a perfect world,
you're already throwing out the Hornet Blast.
That goes every week.
Inserting those links to the school things would be easy for you.
Real easy.
Hyperlinks would be so
That's
easy.
really easy to do.
How do we get the Chromebooks? Aren't those through Google? Do we get it through a grant, or are we buying them ourselves? Or?
How do we buy the Chromebooks?
You're the person to know, Tim. Tim's the guy.
We do common school loans.
Yeah.
And partly textbook rental fees.
Okay. So I don't know if like Google does apps, maybe custom apps that's part, since we use their equipment.
They kind of make us pay for everything, don't they?
Probably. Well, yeah.
Yeah. That's.
Are they doing coding? Can they develop apps in the high school? Are we at that point in the high school yet?
There's probably kids at Central that could probably develop an app if we ask them to. But
Exactly.
Probably right.
That's why I'm wondering, can
the high school students get involved and create our apps and they update websites.
And then I think if you have an app, even kids can teach their parents because it's an app and they'll be excited about it. So if their parent doesn't understand it, the child will be like, oh mom, I can take you through this, or oh dad, this is how you do it. And it's pushy button.
It's like the online grade book. The 4th, 5th, and 6th graders are taught how to do that in class, and then they go home and show the parents. I always tell the parents, if you don't have a code, get on with your kid.
So you could do every night's activity on the app as well. You can just click on the app and then see all the way from high school football to 6th grade choir.
I like that. Okay, so I'm guessing I'm supposed to start writing down, throw me out ideas. Everybody.
Also, is there any type of mentorship program? You were talking about, like, oh, I've never had a 6th grader who's emotional and going through AR or whatever. Maybe a high schooler can go and talk to that 6th grader, talk to that girl, talk to that guy who's having a positive. Yeah,
that's on our little thing somewhere.
I think they do, but I don't know what all schools they go to. I know when my girls were at Hornet Park, high schoolers would go over to Hornet Park.
And they still do that.
But I don't know if once they leave Hornet Park, if that program is gone.
We have cadet teachers, and the high schoolers have to get volunteer hours, so I don't know if, I mean, we could set up like we used to have some tutoring done at South Grove from the high schoolers, but we haven't.
They have the AIM, I think it's called the AIM program, with like band and choir, but I don't know.
But that, I mean, that could be arranged because the high schoolers have to have community service hours. Well, tutoring a South Grove kid for 45 minutes after school.
Talking about what our contribution as a corporation or
Yeah.
HSBT's
No.
cost.
The school has got to find a way to support the contribution to health insurance at a higher percentage to retain staff. Because if rates go up 5 or 7 or 10% and we don't pick up any of that, people aren't going to stay in our corporation. They're going to go to Warren.
Does Warren have $1?
$1 insurance for Warren Township.
And their pay scale's higher.
And here we pick up 70%. So if it's $5,000, they pick up 30%. So they're picking up $1,200, right, of a $5,000 premium. So look at the difference right there. $1,200 health insurance here is an automatic. You move to Warren, you get a $1,200 raise right now just because of health insurance premiums. That's a major concern moving forward.
Okay, looking at timelines on these, we need to
Maybe 2 months on that one. Another month on the next one.
My normal wake-up time.
Well, now that we've discussed the population ratio for student to teacher, is it fairly close, or probably the same at Warren, or maybe even less, possibly?
The same or
I would say
less?
it's about the same.
Yep.
That's been
Okay,
so
what
easy.
resources? That's about there is left to talk about. I mean, teacher comes in here, we all hear about it. I've heard about it for years. I knew it in school. Teachers, of course, are always spending money out of
I don't know
pocket
what
to do
data he's
whatever.
got on
Is
Because I
any
know
of
we
that
started
significantly
asking.
different than here as opposed to, say, Warren or Franklin Central? Enough to even talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Do we have the resources to?
It's hard, you know, you don't. Yeah, there's no real difference. We have a
As far as maybe more so now, because we didn't have, I mean, computers were just starting when I was in school. Now I'm sure computers dominate every classroom.
Yep.
What's our ratio
so we have,
of computer access?
We have a much better, 1-to-1. We have a much better ratio than most corporations with technology to the student. That's why we have that's why we have over 3,000 students right now.
Okay.
The problem is that how do you compensate in such ways that teachers will feel, if we don't have thousands of dollars to put on salary.
Right, ease of teaching, I guess what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, how do you help the teachers feel satisfied if it's not just focused on dollars?
More hard.
How do you celebrate the teacher, and how do you provide an environment where the teacher feels valued? And that's outside of the dollars.
I think that's
survey.
This, and you start to get like a scale as to like how important something is to you, how satisfied you are with it. You look at your corporations, your staff, and you say, here are the most important things to our staff. Here's how well they feel valued on these things. Is there a discrepancy here? If that's a discrepancy, those are things that we in turn need to fix. Well.
I want a part of the literacy nights. Right, and so I think that the district would definitely try to get the parents and families to
do a harvest, right? If you have it during the school day, it takes that away from the parent having to be involved in that. You know what I mean? Like if you have the at-risk student a program during school, because then you don't have to get a permission slip from the parents, and you don't have to, you know what I mean? Is there any way to do that?
We have the intervention. I mean, we have tier intervention
Success time.
Success and after that it's cold. So those at-risk students are being seen like for 45 minutes every day for reading really more than that. But so we do have that kind of built in already.
How many minutes you need? Table leaders.
$10,000.
Don't feel like this conversation's going to end on this.
Yeah.
So,
and how
I think we should write on here that you've identified a challenge of connecting with the parents of the kids in these groups.
So
in a way that we can get them involved and get them the solutions, right? I mean, that's basically what you're saying is how do we connect to the unconnected parent, or how do we emphasize to the parent that is downplaying the need or has other challenges in their life that are taking precedence to get them to understand that this is a problem that's only going to get worse until you deal with it. Is that kind of what you're...
Yeah. And also, how do we make sure that none of these get on the back burner?
What you do is put football helmets on all these kids.
And then can you put on there in 4 years for me to have my degree so I can help do this? Can we put that on there? And you guys can pay for it too?
Sorry. I do feel like we are trying to treat well and think that's the point of the school is to we have to re-educate I do think that we are all just telling them about on the same page with what is best for students.
Right.
We want all of our students to achieve.
Right.
Whether they struggle academically, behaviorally, or they're successful academically, we can challenge them.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the same support at home, we're really helping support the parents as well to help them value education, help their students value education. So I think that is all the same desire, the hygiene of all our students.
And I just want everything to keep moving forward instead of some of the groups, getting stuck. You know what I mean?
I definitely prefer to learn all those groups. Let's have a conversation.
It always seems like the schools are recognizing more and more the cost associated with the kid that's behind versus the kid that's on track. And schools aren't recognizing the fact that if they can get the child that's behind on track, they actually end up saving some money And so there's some recognition there. The harder one in that conversation is the kid that's advanced.
Right.
Because they're always going to cost more money, because they're always going to be just more advanced. So in terms of challenges of the dollars and cents of the school, it's going to be an easier sell to get the behind kid up to snuff than it is to convince the school to continue to spend money on the advanced.
In high school, the honors class at Beech Grove, when I was there, was just taking the next grade's level.
Yeah.
And that way it wouldn't cost anymore, would it? I mean, if 9th grade honors took 10th and 10th grade honors took 11th, wouldn't that be the same
And they were
price?
offered college credits, which I think the high school is doing a good job with that. It's the elementary that we're trying to catch. Like, we're doing it in a different way than I think that you and I would love to see it.
I mean, like, is there any way to get the kids who are excelling in 2nd grade math to be in with a 3rd grade math class? Is there any way to have the kids who,
There are
you know
ways
what I
to
mean?
do that. Arlington in the SIP program that my daughter's in. She's in 1st grade. She's sitting in with kindergartners for her education, her primary education. So, I mean, there are programs out there for special learners that do that. It's just setting that up.
Right.
Students that were in 1st grade but needed to go back to kindergarten for some other support during some of that language arts block. Obviously, we want them to be out the full time because then they are missing out on that critical instruction. They'll never really get caught up. However, if these children are student attention, that's also when they're not on grade level, that we need to go through the intervention process and evaluation too. So I definitely think that there's things that we need to as well here to help. It's much better than students as well as the kiddos that are more advanced. I think, like you said, we are really putting a big focus on a lot of kiddos.
What's funny is when I was a kid and I had to have speech therapy, they didn't even consider it punishment. They would just always pull me out of recess to have speech. So for 7 years, I just missed recess twice a week. You have speech. I didn't think anything about it. That was 20 years ago. We don't care about that kind of stuff. And these guys think we start worrying about that.
Enrichment, whatever, catch up time.
But you would probably the way your school is laid out. There isn't really a garbage. Just because of the way that that's handled. They're going to miss something.
Right.
And that's
well,
kind of
I personally try to set it up where it's my title, my SPED, and my speech kids are all getting pulled out at the same time, so that I take my high and my on-level kids, and we Zoom during that.
just a couple of minutes. And if you want to grab a cup of coffee, it is not decaf, we double checked on that, or a snack, or run to the restroom, let's take a few minutes to do that and then we'll come back.
Hey. No. Oh yeah, it's very good. I've been telling these guys about these sewers.
That's a good trade-off. Me too.
Read that.
You know what will happen
Huh? No, I told the council, I said, one of these days we got all these shooting septics around here. We're going to fail. We're going to come to the city, want you to do something. On Adelaide alone, about $700,000.
I do that.
There goes the question. No, but
my answer sheets for my substitute this week of mine. Actually, if they come with one, like, here's your answer sheet.
Jump in my grave that quick?
You're the
Any hearts on that one?
No, second. Somebody clean up. It's right on the corner of the track.
That's what you get. I know. I think he asks me every day.
All right, and we're going to start on 2 minutes now.
Your house is already better. And every room. Landing, like.
Well, the thing with this too is, where it says link every school on the corner class, that means that every school has to be on the same timeline. Like, everybody knows deadline. You know, there, what the opportunity. That is something that does because you're going to have to talk about what you want.
All right, guys, let's rotate in 3, 2, 1.
A lot of other followers.
No, I just think it's really good.
You know, in none of these sheets do I see anything that describes the difference between dealing with a Beech Grove student and an IVS West End student. I would imagine there's a difference. I would imagine there's a difference in dealing with the kid that's bussed in from outside, you know, that's brought in and filled in from outside. Somebody who's decided to bring their kid into Beech Grove.
Rental classes, that, I could see that being daily.
It just seems like, because they wouldn't feel as much part of the community, they wouldn't feel as anchored, they would be selecting
how many times that comes
school
up?
system based on other factors, whereas we're sending here unless
Unfortunately, that's everywhere.
But I don't see anything that
Definitely in Marion County.
But maybe you don't see the classroom.
Twin
sister. 1 minute.
I have had my be from both sides. From like
I think he got an academic.
because they're from because they're from Beech Grove.
He's on track.
Well, I think it goes back right, but it's I have the
I can't remember now.
Back when James was in school, Dan Baker, his dad had some kind of crazy relationship with Willow Glen. He ended up living with us last
30
year.
seconds.
Yeah. He ended up being a great guy. But yeah, some kids may not even know.
which is right next to us. Awesome. Oh.
Somebody dying? Lady dying?
Let's rotate.
I remember them days.
In what context is he writing? Like where are the schools?
No, it's a teacher's experience. Wasn't in Colorado.
We're supposed to be on number 2.
And it's just, she talks about her students, how they transition, how they struggle through those transitions, like the student that constantly moves from place to place.
I did, but I transferred to somebody who did. I did it in a quick time too. Don't expect that every time. Whoops.
What do you mean by grade level consideration?
Well, the idea of, like we talked about, 5 buildings, is there a better way to organize them?
Oh, yes.
Right now it's
Okay.
K1, 2, 3.
1 minute, folks.
Is it one of the problems is 6th grade. 6th grade's an outlier. Sometimes some districts have it with 4th and 5th, some have it with 7th and 8th. 6th graders really don't fit. They're kind of a unique. Some have just 6th.
And some they have just 6th grade academy.
6th grade academy. And some 6th graders are just kind of a unique. You know, with these kids, remember that 6th grade, they're kind of odd. Yeah, it's a lot of puberty hits right there. A lot of times they just struggle to fit. Are they the leader or are they
30 seconds.
Where do they benefit most? Sometimes they benefit just being on their own in the academy.
And the same with 3rd graders, meaning with K1. For the K1 kids, it might be better for the 3rd grade to be with them versus not. So there's a lot of research we have to look at.
Behaviors. They could be role models to 1st and 2nd grade, but do they fit best with that?
Now let's rotate to our next poster.
3rd grade could benefit better if we went to 4th and 5th graders, but they can learn from the older kids.
$2 million in roofs. And they're with him. I have $100,000 air handler that's going to die in 4 months. Nobody knows because they have because the second compressor is so now we're down to 1 compressor.
1 minute.
I read a great article about New York City. It kind of ties into this. And it kind of ties in right through. In New York City, the most successful schools, they're putting all the community resources in those elementary schools. Outreach, not just nurses that work with our kids, but nurses that work with communities and families. That total community outreach, social services, welfare services, those are all going in there. So if you take this concept and tie it into ours.
30 seconds.
Special ed. Yeah. We've already talked to one local hospital about putting the health clinic in there for the community.
Go ahead and rotate to the next poster.
That's why as we expand facilities, we expand opportunities.
I saw you. Is there 8 total?
Super important and stuff, but I've got no passion for it.
30 seconds.
What other buildings are available? Are empty.
If only we hadn't knocked down the cancer-ridden hospital, we could have just moved there.
I don't know that well. They filled it up. What do you think? That's what I heard, because I heard it was a two-story building.
What?
Space underneath Central.
It was 2 levels, right?
Yeah, I meant like to the side, like where she
I'll take them there.
Let's rotate to the next poster. Our last rotation.
It's really hard to convince them.
Or you can dance to the next poster. Go ahead. Group out of your way. You need to get to that poster.
I know, I was like, Ian, that is
Last rotation, correct.
So we go to 1.
Yeah.
Why are they still?
They just haven't rotated yet.
Yeah. No,
Depending on the definition, you can push something like, I know there's a rule, you can get
Population. It's not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted.
And that one is totally different now than it was 15 years ago. Teachers didn't leave. Now there's so many opportunities they leave. Location, my friends teaching there. I want to move to the north side, west side. It is different in many cases, much more
So
mobile.
there's ways that you can shove some of those services to just all the kids.
Well, and also, they're very well-trained.
Yes.
They're marketing.
Oh. They go into interviews and they just knock it out of the park. Most of our teachers are going to do good jobs. Sure. So maybe we should turn them some.
Let's finish up with this last poster in about 30 seconds and return to our tables when you are ready.
Alright, and the first one we did the sticky note activity.
Let's head back to our table. 30 seconds to get back to our table.
Thank you.
Over there, they have to buy a tag.
I got academic feedback on my handwriting.
Okay.
Come on.
Hi, three kids.
Andrew's soccer. Just got done with soccer. I was a widow for how many months? It was just me. I was on my own. So maybe I'll come back.
In about 1 minute, I'm going to ask each table to share out, each table, not each person, each table to share out one word to describe tonight's process. So talk and agree on one word. Okay? Okay. We will go backwards, all right? We'll go first. I'm ready. Tom's gonna clear this out. That's why we did first. Table number 3 is volunteer. Rob.
We're done.
But they're all like,
They took all our good ones.
we got one.
No, it's her.
Groundbreaking.
Forward thinking. This table. Collaborative. I had it with the best place rated group.
Kaiser's
So we met our objective tonight, which was to really dig into identifying our next steps, possible timelines for each of our goals. Our next meeting is on November 28th, same time, same place, same treats, which by the way, because I'm about to let you go, all that food, if you want to grab a plate, take some snacks home to munch on later or share with the little ones, we really encourage you to do that. But we want to thank you guys seriously for your time tonight. You are such a fun group. You really are. I called it the fellowship time when I let you guys have about 5 minutes just to talk to each other. Just delightful people in our community. So we are very, very grateful for you being here tonight. If you have any questions, you can ask any of us. Oh, yep.
According to the agenda, it's at Hornet Park.
Oh,
that's an old agenda.
That's an old agenda. Yeah, it's here.
On the internet.
The Hornet Training Center is not.
We'll take that off.
It's not big enough for our large group. Yes, ma'am.
Reminder of the community-wide Thanksgiving dinner on Monday, November 21st.
Yeah. Don't forget, also, just a quick FYI, we're going to be doing our, is it our third?
Yeah.
Yes, our third community-wide Thanksgiving dinner here at the high school. We welcome all of our families, and anyone who lives in Beech Grove. They don't have to have a child in the school system to come, and it's good food. Like the dessert especially is good.
And we will make sure that everything has been updated from tonight, and we'll get it on the website. In case you guys, it's beechgrovecityschools.k12.in.us. Okay, BGCS, yes. And then if you go to the right, you'll just see on the home page, strategic planning, and then you can click on it, and there's different arrow downs that will lead information on the agendas, what we've done. Any of the papers that you're getting right now will also be on the website as well. And if you have any questions, concerns, we're always open, ideas. I know a couple people said, you know, last time I left and I thought about something afterwards. If that happens, text any, or email any of us, and we can add that. Perfect. Thank you so much.